On this episode of Tips on the Top Floor, Danny wonders how to make money with his travel photography. I've been interviewed by Photolife magazine and we'll take a look at the great photos that you submitted to this round of the Slack Photo Challenge. This episode is supported by listeners like you. A big thank you to all the great people who support the show by leaving a review on iTunes, by blogging about it, by sharing the episodes on social media, by your interactions on the Slack and everywhere else, and of course by making a voluntary contribution on TFTTF.com/Patreon. You're a bunch of wonderful people, and I really thank you for all your support. This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 786 for Thursday, August the 10th, 2017.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, all right, from the top floor.
Hey, and welcome. This is Chris Marquardt. You're listening to Tips from the Top Floor, the longest running photography show on the planet, coming to you from the Viewfinder Villa. Let me see. What is going on? What's up here in my life? Well, not a lot, other than finishing manuscripts, which I've handed in the manuscript. So hopefully, keep your fingers crossed that will go through the review and then will be turned into a beautiful book. I'm preparing workshops. I'm preparing travel. I've been doing lots of emails about the Bhutan tour, which is now sold out just today. That last spot was sold, so that one is full now. I was interviewed in Photolife magazine, which is a new magazine that just came out. It's some great portraits of photographers in there about their work, about their motivations, and I'm really honored that they asked me to be in it as well. And you can read this for free online. I will link that in the show notes.
Hi, my name is Danny. I've been traveling for about 7 years now, and during that time I've been focusing on my travel photography mainly as a hobby. However, I've been thinking about trying to earn some money from this hobby recently because the quality has become quite good. I've looked at various websites like Flickr, but I don't fully understand how to market within them. I look forward to any advice you can give me in terms of how to turn a profit.
Thanks, Danny. Flickr is probably not the right place, or at least not if it's the only place that you're trying to be out there, to be seen. Online platforms have the value. Of course, in these times, you need online. Online is the way to get your face out, but they take a lot of work. You'll have to be on several platforms and you have to work it. You really have to keep churning, because if you and you need multiple, because if you put all your eggs in one basket and that platform goes away, then you will be out of a platform and you won't reach anyone. And of course, platforms have realized that they are valuable. I would go as far as saying that some of them have that as their main business model and have had that as their main business model from the start, just they didn't reveal it for a long time. They have value for people who want to sell something. So Facebook, for example, will now ask you for money. Well, they have for quite a while, but they are quite aggressive now, asking you for money to get your product in front of more eyeballs. And I'm not willing to pay that. I don't really appreciate that business model. If there was a secret formula on how to live off travel photography, one thing's for sure, a lot more people would do it. Now, you're not asking the living of it. You're asking just to make some profit with it. But let me try to kind of tell you my story, because that's the only story that I can tell with any authority. Because for me, travel photography is part of my income. I do make some profit off travel photography. So that part of my income is, I would say, mainly from photo tours. So I take people with me, and this way I offset some of the cost. But that cost, of course, includes like equipment, clothing, the hiking gear, sleeping bags, shoes, whatever you need. My own travel to get there, a scouting tour here and there to prepare for a future tour, to decide if I want to do one, and so on. And also, while I'm gone for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on how long the tour is, I cannot really do anything else in that time. So that time needs to be paid. Or I need an assistant, which I don't have, but that would be additional cost. So organizing tours for others, that's one way to earn some money with your travel photography. Selling your art is another one, even though I always recommend photographers to get an independent opinion from someone else, from someone who has been doing this professionally, because these people will know what sells and how to sell it. Now, I personally don't shoot to sell my work, because if I photograph something, I will only do it because I love shooting it the way that I do. And if I had to adapt my photography to the market, which it's inevitable to have to do that if you want to sell your work, then it wouldn't be my photography anymore. So that's just something to think about. Now, to be able to do that, to do the photo tours or the workshops or to sell photography, you will need to get one thing beyond anything else. You will need to get your name and your work out and to be seen by people. You can be really, really good, but if people don't know about you, being good won't really help you. This is just a fact of life. You have to be visible, and if you're not visible, then no one will see you. For me, getting my name out is a combination of many things, and it's online platforms, of course. I mean, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, without paying. Facebook, I just don't like the business model. It's most definitely my own websites that I control, where I do not have to rely on any platforms. I decide what goes on these websites. I decide how things are presented. That getting my name out also includes making these websites easy to find on Google. So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. I'm not talking about dirty tricks or anything. I'm talking about just making sure the websites are designed in a way that makes them easy to find, and then they get indexed, and then people can find me. The books, that's another area that helps. And books themselves don't make any money, okay? Not a lot, at least. I mean, if I did the math, or I have done the math of how much time I spent at writing and how much as actual money ends up on my account, and I did that math and I cried a few tears and closed that spreadsheet quickly, because this is not worth it at all. I do write books because I love diving deep into a topic and giving it some structure and helping others understand that stuff as well this way. And above all, writing books helps me learn. Someone famous once said, if you really want to learn about something, write a book about it. And that is so true, because you have to force yourself into doing something that you wouldn't normally do. At least I wouldn't. And but the books have one important side effect, and they will help you get your name out. That's really a side effect that I wasn't really that aware of. I mean, it's kind of logical, but I didn't really think about it when I wrote the book. But they will make you more visible. And in some mysterious way, maybe that might come back one day. Maybe someone read a book and that's how they found out about you, or they might, I had this combination with someone who are now considered a friend, and I read a book that guy wrote years ago, and then at one time he sent me an email, asked me something about photography because he had heard me on the podcast, and it took me a while, but then I realized, wait, that's the guy whose book I read, and that turned into a friendship. So there's lots of stuff that can happen this way. And above anything, to get visible, to be out there, for me, that is podcasting. I produce 6 regular podcasts now, 4 of them weekly, 1 bi-weekly, and 1 every now and then. And 3 of them are about photography. Now, I don't do them to sell more stuff. This is I approach this from the opposite side, because I believe creating a podcast, when I believe doing that with the sole purpose of selling something cannot work. I make these podcasts because I love doing them, because I love it when I can help people to get better with something. And photography, yeah, you know me. So, but of course, podcasts have a great side effect of letting me get my name out, and they allow me to get my personality out, and they give me my own little platform. Now, again, I haven't done any of what I've just talked about with the goal of making money. That's the wrong approach. I didn't start a podcast thinking, I'll be rich and famous. I started a podcast because I love giving people the gift of learning. And if you have no idea how much it satisfies me if I see the eyes of someone light up because they finally understood how they can do something better in photography. If someone is a better photographer after doing a few things that I talk about here on the show, I'm happy. I didn't start the photo tours thinking, I'll be rich. No, it doesn't work anyway. But I started them because my friend John asked me if I wanted to come hold the highest photo workshop in the world at the Mount Everest Base Camp back in 2000. Well, he asked me in 2007. And then in 2009, we did it. And I couldn't imagine anything better at that time than spending time with him and other people on an adventure while teaching photography. So I did what I love. I didn't start writing books thinking I'll be a famous writer. I started writing books because the publisher found us through the workshops and the podcasts that we do, and asked if Monica and I wanted to write a book on film photography, which is something I always wanted to do, not necessarily on film photography, but to force myself to dive really deep into a topic and to write a book. But then when that came along, that was a very, very simple decision based on something that deep inside I always wanted to do. Again, none of the above was done with a financial goal. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes dedication to go forward with this. And then when over time enough things come together, then the result in my case was that I can now make a living from the combination of all these things. And looking back, I couldn't wish for a better path. It worked out. Everything worked out. Everything came together. There were diversions. It wasn't a straight line. It was a very bumpy road pretty much, but every little bit was good for something. There was a reason for everything. The problem is it's just not possible to see that path looking forward. You can't see that path. It just is, in hindsight, it's the sum of the things that have happened. So my tip is, if you want to turn your photography into money, do what you love and do what feels right. Be a little bit adventurous. And if you're a travel photographer, I guess you are a bit adventurous. Seize opportunities when they present themselves. And this way, you'll do a good job. If you do what you love, you will do a good job and the money will follow. Move forward piece by piece. Things will come together in one way or another. They just might not do it as fast as you expect. Hey, before we dive into the Slack challenge review, here are just a couple of announcements about some of my other projects. There are now 2 new episodes of Curiously Polar. That's the podcast that I record weekly together with Mario Acquarone, the Arctic scientist. And episode 11 is about blue ice. If you ever wondered why Arctic ice is sometimes blue or green, that is the episode to listen to. And episode 12 is about tourism in the Arctic and the Antarctic. And we look at that from all the different angles. A very interesting one, for sure. And then second, this is for you German-speaking film photographers out there. We have a new release of Absolut Analog, which is about monobath developers. Very strange animal in the analog world. You can find that at absolutanalog.de. All right, let's do the challenge review. That challenge was open until the end of July. It's now, almost mid of August. A slight delay. Don't worry about it. This was the biggest challenge to date. The most entries. Love how this is coming along. You guys are amazing. Keep it up. Keep submitting your photos to the challenges. And at the end of this review, I'll give you a new challenge. Or actually, Matt, the Release Pixie Matt Revs it. I will give you a new challenge. And again, there's of course nothing really to win here other than it's giving you a reason to go out and take photos, and you get to share and discuss your photos with others on the Slack. And of course, you get the chance for me to discuss your photos here on the show. And that's what we're going to do right now. Weird concept to discuss photos on a podcast, but hey, this photo podcast has been audio for the longest time. So I've picked 3 photos, lots of long exposures in there, lots of like tripod work, several seconds or even minutes in some cases, some fireworks, some lightning, great stuff in general. And I've picked 3 that I thought were maybe a bit different from the others. First is by Angad Photos, and it's a long exposure. I will, by the way, link these photos in the show notes, but you will need to be a member of the TFTTF Slack to see them. So that's another good reason why you should be on the Slack, and I will let you know how to get on the Slack at the end of this segment. But here's the photo by Angad Photos. It's a long exposure. It's a road. It's a street from above. So that's an unusual angle. It's kind of an aerial exposure. I'm not sure how it did this. Might be a really tall building up there. I don't think it was from a drone because it is a 12-minute exposure. He writes this in the comments. So what you see is a street at night, a typical yellowish tint, which we don't see that much anymore because the lights, the sodium lights, get replaced by LED lights that don't do this yellow anymore, which is kind of a bit of a shame because the way our cities at night look is changing. And in photography, it was often very easy to see that this is a night photo of a city just by that orange tint and some of the other lights having more of a greenish tint, and now the LEDs are more neutral, white. But anyway, so some of the color of inner city photos, of our night photos, is definitely going away. But again, this is a street from above. It's a traffic jam. So there's stop and go traffic. And normally what you would expect from a long exposure photo of a street is, well, on the one side, you see white streaks from the front lights. And then on the other side of the street, you see red streaks from the red lights in the back of a car. And here, first of all, that's a different perspective. It's from almost straight down. And then as it was stop and go traffic, you see a lot of those cars kind of as ghosts. So it almost, when I looked at it first, it looked like this whole street was full of like glass shards of some sort. The effect is amazing. And that's because the cars stop, and then while they stop, they get exposed, and then they move on. And then, of course, while they move, there's not much light coming off of them, so you don't really see them there. So you have a lot of like cars kind of wedged into each other, which makes very, very interesting texture. So that's great job. It's also a great example that long exposures will reveal different things depending on how and where you shoot them. Like from clouds will look very different than that. Second one by Nikolaus Hück, and the title is Midnight over Tromsø Havn, which is Tromsø is a town in northern Norway, and Havn is a harbor. So it's a harbor. You see a marina in the front, and like a small cruise ship kind of thing in the back, and in the very background there are mountains. And you know how a night shot can look like a daytime shot if you expose it long enough? I mean, it will just get as bright as a daytime shot if you if you expose it long. And that's kind of what this looked like. That was my first thought. This is a night shot that was exposed for a long time, so it looks like a daytime shot. And then I clicked on the thumbnail. And then, of course, I will try to reverse engineer a photo. And if that was a long exposed night shot, well, first of all, the colors are kind of not like that because you have red, orange, sunset-like colors in some parts of the image. That does not really happen with a real night shot. And second, the water in that port is, it's frozen in motion. And if you would do a long exposure of water, well, you'll get this silky smooth surface of water. And here, that's not the case. It looks like normal water. So he has definitely used a shorter exposure. So next thought was, if that's a night shot, even though the light kind of doesn't match a night shot, he might have just cranked up the ISO so he would get a short exposure. But that wasn't it either. And then I looked at the back at the title. It's like Midnight over Tromsø haben. And Tromsø is oddly enough the place where my partner on Curiously Polar lives in northern Norway. It's in the Arctic. And guess what happens in the Arctic during the summer? The midnight sun. And then, of course, I read the description. And yes, this was taken a few minutes past midnight. But with the midnight sun in the sky, which leaves a beautiful warm light on the mountains in the back and on some parts of the clouds. And that totally tricked me. Good job tricking me, Nicholas. That's, well done. And then last but not least, here's a photo by Brendan Burkett. And it is, okay, Brendan snuck this in slightly after the challenge was over, like a couple of days later, and that kind of technically should be disqualified. But Matt didn't close the challenge until then, so hey, I think it's okay. And I'll make an exception in this case because it's a great shot. It's a really great shot. What we see is a river, a bridge, a skyline, and lightning in the sky. So the photo looks like everything belongs somewhere. Everything is deliberately placed somewhere. Even the lightning looks like Brendan to deliberately put it up there. I don't think it's a composite photo, but everything kind of looks like it's a composed picture. It didn't happen by accident. So there's the bridge. The bridge is lit warmly, and it leads your eye into the photo. Then in the lower half, there is the river. The river has this long exposure feeling to it, the smooth water that we didn't see in the other photo, even though it's not super smooth. So I guess it wasn't a super long exposure. There's the skyline kind of cutting through the picture in the middle. And then above, there is the lightning bolt that kind of splits up into 3 lightning bolts and hits the ground, or I don't know, whichever way they travel. I think they sometimes travel from the bottom up, but doesn't matter. And then there's the foreground. So there's rocks on the side of the river, and he has those in the foreground, which adds a great element to the photo because it really leads you into the photo and gives something to hold on to in the foreground. And that together with the color combination of the bluish sky and the warm light on the bridge and the colorful reflections of the city in the water is just a great shot. So, Angad, Nikolaus, Brendan, thanks so much for participating. Awesome job.
Hello everyone, Revstar the Release Pixie here, and I'm proud to say we've made it through a full year of Slack photo challenges, so we're ready for the next one. Next challenge, which is for September 2017, is food, so no other restrictions other than food. It doesn't have to be a still life of food, it can be an action photo, I guess, of people eating food or making food. I just want you to go out and find some great food photos. Well, hopefully we'll get Chris to do some show topic on some food photo tips. I know he's done at least one workshop, if not 2 workshops, covering food photos. So hopefully he's got some tips for everybody. And let's just get some great photos. We had some really great ones in the last challenge for night, and Chris will be reviewing those soon if he hasn't already reviewed them. Hopefully, we'll make Chris really hungry when we go through the photos for this challenge, which is food. Happy shooting, everyone, and I'll see you next month.
Thank you, Matt, for coming up with this new challenge. Food. Everyone eats food several times a day, so you have it around you, and it's kind of one of these things that we don't think about too much unless we look at one of those juicy photos of a juicy burger, and then we buy the product and it looks very different from what we expected from the photo. So food photography, there's a lot that can go into food photography, but then if you think just about some simple things like light and arranging it nicely on a plate and stuff, you might be doing a great job. But this doesn't necessarily have to be food photography. It just has to be food related. It could be, as Matt said, could be someone preparing food, or anyway, I'll leave it completely open to you. I want you to participate in that challenge. Again, big prizes to be reviewed here on the episode, and but you will have a good reason to do some photography. So participate. Come and join us here on the Slack. Matt has opened a channel specific to that challenge. It's open for 2 months, or I'll say 1.5 months now, for the rest of August and for September, and then end of September, early October. I will review what you guys put on there. If you're not a member of the Slack, it is a simple thing to get on there. Just go to tfttf.com/yslack, tfttf.com/yslack, WHYSLACK, yslack. That gives you everything you need to know how to get on the Slack, and Russ will send you an invitation, and then you're on there and member of a wonderful community. It's free. It's a great place to discuss everything, and the challenges are just a small part of this. And if you're not there, you're missing out. And of course, it lets you see the challenge pictures, and it lets you participate in the challenges. That was it for this episode of Tips from the Top Floor. Thanks again, everyone who participated in the Slack challenge. You guys are great. And also thanks, Danny, for the excellent question. If you want to send in your question, just speak it into the voice memo app of your choice and send it to voice@tfttf.com. That's voice@tfttf.com. And remember, if you include your address, I will send you a TFTTF sticker in the mail, no matter where you live. And thanks again to all the amazing Patreon supporters. Your voluntary support starts at $1 per episode, and you'll get early access to the episodes while helping keep the lights on here in the Top Floor. Find out more at tfttf.com/Patreon. Thank you. Music for the show by Jeff Smith, silent partner in Hans-Peter Gagrud, publishing by Release Pixie, Matt Refster, Armstead, Slack imitations by CIO Russ. And if you want to join the discussion, go to tfttf.com/yslack, WHYSLACK, for more information. My name is Chris Marquardt. Follow me on Facebook and on Twitter at Chris Marquardt, Chris MARQUARDT. And of course, go out and take amazing photos. Be nice to each other. And happy shooting.